Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shujar and these are the headlines. Pakistan has called for debt suspension and drawing rights of $500 billion to prevent economic collapse due to COVID-19. Prime Minister Imran Khan was virtually addressing a special session by the United Nations General Assembly on response to the pandemic. Khan proposed a 10-point agenda for economic recovery. The United States has reported the highest ever coronavirus deaths and cases in a single day. The country recorded 2,879 deaths and more than 217,000 infections overnight. India remains the second worst hit nation with more than 139,000 deaths and 9.5 million cases so far. While in the last 24 hours, Pakistan has registered 55 fatalities and over 3,200 cases with the death toll over 8,000. The global deaths from the coronavirus have exceeded 1.5 million, while the tally of infections has crossed 65 million. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has rejected a suit by President Donald Trump attempting to overturn his loss to Joe Biden in the battleground state. The top court said the parties could pursue a case in a lower court. The legal defeat on a 4-3 ruling was the latest in a string of losses for Trump's post-election lawsuits. China says it firmly opposes wanton U.S. oppression of its companies after Washington blacklisted its top chip maker and oil giant. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying asked the United States to stop abusing the concept of national security. And in football, AC Milan came from 2 goals behind to beat Celtic 4-2 at the San Siro in a Europa League encounter. Tom Rolish and Odsone Edward put Celtic in control after just 14 minutes of the first half. For news in detail, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The United States has reported the highest ever coronavirus deaths and cases in a single day. The country recorded 2,879 deaths and more than 217,000 infections overnight. India remains the second worst hit nation with more than 139,000 deaths and 9.5 million cases so far. The global deaths from the coronavirus have exceeded 1.5 million, while the tally of infections has crossed 65 million. More in this report.
Now that UK has approved the emergency rollout of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, the world has gone into a frenzy. Doubts, second thoughts, competition, sighs of relief and hurried preparations go hand in hand after the first major breakthrough. The situation remains grim in the US as President-elect Joe Biden said he will ask Americans to wear masks for his first 100 days in the office. And New York's governor says the only way to come out of this grim situation is to fight off the pandemic with a vaccine.
This is the weapon that is going to win the war. And that is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So it's not tomorrow. It's not a short tunnel. But we know the way through this. We just have to get there. And we have to get there with as little loss of life as possible.
Moderna said it expects to have up to 125 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine available globally in the first quarter of 2021. France announced that it will ensure free COVID-19 vaccinations for all in its social security system, while Belgium's Brussels airport is ramping up preparations for the mission of the century to handle the transport of vaccines.
The volumes here will be huge. It's really going to be a tsunami of vaccines coming through this airport, and then you need to be very well prepared. If you are not prepared for a tsunami, then you get lost.
Meanwhile, China has delivered over 1 million doses of a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Sinovac to Brazil for late-stage testing in 16 locations.
Top United States infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci has apologized for casting doubt on the rigor of British regulators. Earlier, London's medicine regulators dismissed Fauci's criticism and defended their approval of the Pfizer vaccine. In an interview, Dr. Fauci said that he had faith in the quality of work of British regulators. He said that he did not mean to imply any sloppiness, even though it came out of the way. Earlier, Fauci had said that the United Kingdom regulators rushed the approval process. The United Kingdom became the first country on the 2nd of December to approve a coronavirus vaccine. Pakistan has called for debt suspension and drawing rights of 500 billion United States dollars to prevent an economic collapse due to COVID-19. Prime Minister Imran Khan was virtually addressing a special session by the United Nations General Assembly on response to the pandemic. More in this report.
Prime Minister Imran Khan proposed a 10-point agenda for economic recovery at the summit. He said developing countries are facing a dilemma on how to stimulate the economy and reduce budget deficit at the same time. Khan said Islamabad provided a relief package of around $8 billion to support the poor and to keep the economy afloat during the pandemic. The Prime Minister also proposed the creation of a new liquidity and sustainability facility to provide short-term loans at lower costs. He said the agreed target of mobilizing $100 billion per year for climate action in developing countries must also be met. Khan called for immediate action to stop the massive illicit financial outflows from developing countries to rich countries. He said stolen assets stashed in rich countries must be returned. The Prime Minister expressed hope that whenever a vaccine is available, it must be offered to everyone.
In Pakistan, 55 people have died of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, pushing the death toll to 8,260. The Health Ministry says more than 3,200 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry said that the country's active cases have crossed 51,000. It added that out of nearly 410,000 countrywide cases, more than 350,000 people have recovered. Iran has urged the International Atomic Energy Agency to condemn the assassination of its top nuclear scientist. In a letter, Iran's permanent representative Kazim Gharibabadi called on Mohsen Fakhrizadeh's killing a terrorist attack. Gharibabadi said terrorist attacks against Iranian nuclear scientists began a decade ago. He said these require proper attention from the international community and organizations. Earlier, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said Tehran proved its bona fide in 15 IAEA reports. He said the next United States administration must prove its goodwill by complying fully with Security Council resolutions. The United States has blacklisted one entity and one individual accused of involvement in Iran's chemical weapons research. In a statement, the Treasury Department says Shahid Mesami Group and its director were targeted. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin says the United States will continue to counter Iranian efforts to develop chemical weapons. In another statement, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Iran can use chemical agents for offensive purposes. The United States has accused the group of having links to the blacklisted Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research. It was formerly led by Iran's recently assassinated nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says Tehran is ready to engage in further prisoner swaps. Zarif's offer comes after Iran released a British-Australian academic in exchange for 3 Iranians detained abroad. Addressing an Italian diplomatic conference, Zarif said a prisoner swap will be allowed in the interest of everyone, and Iran is ready to reciprocate. Zarif urged the United States to show goodwill by returning to the 2015 nuclear deal, which President Donald Trump quit. He said if the United States honors its original commitments, Tehran will show full compliance with the pact. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan and his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani have discussed steps to improve bilateral ties. The two leaders said this during a phone call. In a statement, Turkey's communication directorate said Erdogan offered condolences over the killing of Iran's top scientist. The Turkish president said the assassination targeted regional peace and stability. He said those who want to drag the region into instability will fail. The directorate said the two leaders also discussed regional issues. Top Iranian leaders, including President Hassan Rouhani, have accused Israel of orchestrating the attack. United States lawmakers have agreed on defense legislation that will force the government to sanction Turkey for buying a Russian missile system. The $740 billion defense bill is expected to pass Congress this month. The National Defense Authorization Act establishes curbs on Ankara within 30 days of becoming law. But President Donald Trump has threatened to veto the annual defense spending legislation. Earlier, Turkey said it expects the United States to solve all problems through dialogue without threatening Kür. Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said Ankara is ready to negotiate the issue with the present administration or the next one. Turkey and the United States have stressed the need to support the Afghan peace process. U.S. Special Envoy for Afghanistan Zalmay Khalilzad and Turkey's Deputy Foreign Minister Sedat Unal met in Ankara. In a statement, the United States State Department said that it was imperative that parties build on the current momentum to bring peace in Afghanistan. It said the stakeholders must accelerate efforts to define a political roadmap and reach a comprehensive ceasefire. Meanwhile, Turkey's foreign ministry said Ankara welcomed the recent progress in Afghan peace negotiations. Khalilzad said that he will also travel to Qatar to help the warring sides in Afghanistan build on the success of their recent agreement. Russia says it tracked 36 foreign aircraft near its state border over the past week. State media says 30 foreign spy planes and 6 drones were conducting air reconnaissance. It said that they violated international border laws. It quoted the defense ministry as saying it mobilized 2 fighter jets to prevent the violations. Earlier in an interview, Air Force Deputy Commander Andrei Yudin said over 1,300 foreign spy planes have been intercepted in 2020 so far. He said the quick alert forces have been scrambled more than 170 times to intercept foreign planes near the borders. The United States says it aims to cut carbon emissions by at least 68% of what they were in 1990 by 2030. Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced the ambitious target, which sets London on the path to net zero by 2050. In a statement, Johnson said the goal will be seeing Britain cutting emissions faster than any major economy so far. He urged other world leaders to follow his lead at the virtual UN Climate Summit on December 12. Earlier, London said that it will replace carbon-emitting cars and vans with electric ones by 2030. Scientists have welcomed the news but say it does not guarantee dangerous climate change to be avoided. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has rejected a lawsuit by President Donald Trump attempting to overturn his loss to Joe Biden in the battleground state. The top court said the parties could pursue a case in a lower court. The petition alleged Wisconsin election officials were directed to fill in missing information on ballot envelopes. It said they issued absentee ballots without receiving applications and allowed people to improperly claim a confined absentee voting status. It also said officials in Madison City collected and checked ballots in city parks and not polling stations, which is against the state law. The legal defeat on a 4-3 ruling was the latest in a string of losses for the Trump post-election lawsuits. He has claimed without any evidence that the election was rigged and marred by widespread fraud. China says it firmly opposes wanton U.S. oppression of its companies after Washington blacklisted its top chip maker and oil giant. The United States earlier blacklisted China's top chip maker SMIC and oil giant CNOOC over alleged military links. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying asked Washington to stop abusing the concept of national security. Hua said malicious United States activities will severely harm America's interest and international image. Meanwhile, in an article, United States Director of National Intelligence called China the biggest threat to democracy since World War II. John Ratcliffe said Beijing intends to dominate the United States and the rest of the planet economically, militarily, and technologically. Former Chief Minister of the Indian-occupied Kashmir, Mehbooba Mufti, says the farm protests have brought Delhi to its knees. She said the disruption of peaceful protests showed the nervousness and failure of the Modi government. Mufti said a reign of repression has been unleashed since the illegal abrogation of Article 370. Earlier, the fourth round of talks between the center and 40 farmer unions failed to make headway. A cabinet minister said they will continue discussions on Saturday. In India's biggest farm unrest in years, tens of thousands of growers are protesting on the outskirts of the capital, Delhi. They're demanding the repeal of laws that farmers feel will leave them at the mercy of big corporations. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In England, 4 people lost their lives and another was injured in a blast at a water treatment site in Bristol. In a statement, the police said 3 of the dead were workers at the Wessex Water, while the 4th was a contractor. Police said the blast took place in one of the chemical tanks at the water plant in Avonmouth. They ruled out any connection to terrorism or any ongoing threat to people living nearby. Talking to the press, Avon Chief Inspector Mark Runacase said that the probe was underway. In a tweet, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was deeply saddened to hear of the deaths and thanked emergency services. OPEC and Russia have agreed to slightly ease their deep oil output cuts from January by 500,000 barrels per day. They failed to find a compromise on a border and long-term policy for the rest of the year in a virtual meeting. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said the group has decided to gather every month to decide on policies beyond January. He said the monthly increases will not exceed 500,000 barrels per day. He said the group has extended compensatory cuts for overproducing countries until March 2021. Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman said there were differences between many members. OPEC Plus has also struck a delicate balance between pushing up oil prices enough to help their budgets. In the United Kingdom, the Glow Wild Winter Lantern Festival is back for the 7th year. This year, the festival celebrates the hidden heroes of the planet and fungal world. More in this report.
As winter draws in, one country house in England delighted visitors with its annual winter light show. Wakehurst in Sussex has installed over 1,000 lanterns across its gardens. The Glow Wild Festival never fails to transform the area into a winter wonderland.
We came last year, and I feel like this year is really outstanding. It's much even better than last year. I feel like the whole trail, like we love walking around the lanterns with the kids. It's just really magical. And more so this year, and the fire, the lake, literally everything. Oh yes, literally we've enjoyed absolutely everything.
This year, the designs have been inspired by workings of nature that generally go unnoticed, such as the spores of plant settling and the work of fungi in enriching the landscape. A staggering 33,000 plants have been illuminated, making it a truly immersive experience for the visiting families.
It's a layer added onto the Wakehurst landscape. We have something amazing here. We have these great stately trees. We have beautiful undulations and valleys within Wakehurst. And what we don't want to do is to offer something utterly different and distracting. We actually want to enhance what's here. So it's subtlety, it's light, it's sound, it's a sort of sensory layer that we add onto the landscape to really kind of bring the place at night to life for our visitors.
COVID-19 presented challenges to the annual feature, which for many residents signifies the countdown to Christmas. Lanterns had to be mailed out to staff to assemble in their homes.
A monk in Myanmar is working for the animal rights in a unique way. He saves snakes destined for culling and the black market. More in this report.
Tenderly stroking the back of a large Burmese python resting on his lap, Buddhist monk Vilatha is trying to play a part in saving scores of snakes that might otherwise be killed or destined to be smuggled overseas as food or traditional medicine. The 69-year-old monk has created a refuge for snakes at a monastery in the bustling commercial city of Yangon. He takes in various species from pythons to vipers and cobras.
I always check their health and condition every morning, as I feel from the bottom of my heart that they are my sons and daughters.
Since its launch 5 years ago, residents and government agencies have been bringing captured snakes to the monk. The monk said residents in mainly Buddhist Myanmar hope to gain merit by giving captured snakes to a monk rather than killing or selling them.
In Buddhism, one of 4 great devas, celestial beings, is a snake guardian. In other words, the snakes are related to the deva world. If you kill a snake, you will suffer bad luck to your family, have a broken family, cause deadly disease, and destroy business.
The snakes are kept at the monastery until the forest authority sets a date to release them into protected sanctuaries. In the meantime, the snakes, which are used to hunting live prey, have to be manually fed fish or other meat 2 or 3 times a month.
The ascender of China's Chang'e 5 probe carrying lunar samples has blasted off from the moon. This marks the first time that a spacecraft launched by China has taken off from an extraterrestrial body. More about the space mission in this report.
China's Chang'e 5 probe, launched on the 22nd of November, is the first attempt by any nation to retrieve samples from the moon since the 1970s. In recent developments, the probe's ascender took off from the moon and reached a scheduled lunar orbit in around 6 minutes.
This lunar liftoff is very successful. The ascender took off on schedule and reached the scheduled orbit precisely, laying a good foundation for the next work. Because our task is to take samples and send them back, the ascender has to take off on schedule to dock with the return vehicle. The task of sampling and return are interlocked, so we must complete all of them successfully.
Besides, the lunar liftoff also conquered many other challenges, including limited divergent space for the engine plume and different environments between Earth and the moon. The ascender is expected to complete the unmanned rendezvous and docking with the orbiter returner in lunar orbit. The samples will be transferred to the returner.
Through 4 long-term adjustments, we will adjust the ascender to a proper position in relation to the orbiter and complete the rendezvous. We are more confident now and look forward to its return with the lunar samples.
When the geometric relationship between the Earth and the moon is suitable, the orbiter will carry the returner back to the Earth. The Chang'e 5 probe will seek to collect material that can help scientists understand more about the moon's origins and formation.
Britain says post-Brexit trade talks with the European Union are in a difficult phase. Talking to the media, Business Secretary Alok Sharma said a deal can only be struck if the EU accepts that Britain is a sovereign nation. Sharma said that there are some tricky issues that still need to be resolved. Meanwhile, French European Affairs Minister Clement Bignon says that if a good deal is not reached, there are chances of a veto. He said Paris will reject any deal which does not do justice to its fishermen, producers, and citizens. Less than 4 weeks are left until the United Kingdom finally exits the EU's orbit on December 31st. Most European stocks are trading higher as investors monitor prospects of a U.S. stimulus package and a last-minute Brexit trade deal. The Pan-European Stock 600 has edged up fractionally above the flat line. The CAC 40 in Paris, London's FTSE, and Italy's FTSE MIB have all edged up, but Frankfurt's DAX has shed marginally. Earlier, most Asian bourses gained except for mainland Chinese and Japanese shares. West Indies have won this year's Spirit of Cricket Award after sending both of their men's and women's teams to tour in England during the pandemic. The honor was announced by Marylebone Cricket Club, which acts as a custodian and arbitrator of cricket laws. The MCC also praised the boards of Pakistan, Ireland and Australia for allowing their teams to play in England. Windies arrived in England in June in a biosecure environment which saw international cricket resume for the first time since the coronavirus outbreak. The women featured in a 2020 international series against England in September after India and South Africa were unable to tour. Jason Holder's West Indies side won a similar award from the Cricket Writers Club in October. Atletico Madrid forward Luis Suarez is set to return to action this weekend after returning a negative COVID-19 test. He tested positive on international duty last month and missed Uruguay's win over Colombia and defeat by Brazil. Suarez also missed Atletico Madrid's last 4 fixtures. He joined Atleti from Barcelona in the last transfer window and has scored 5 goals in 6 La Liga appearances for the Rojiblancos. Diego Simeone's side currently sits second in La Liga on 23 points, 1 point behind leaders Real Sociedad. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.